How long has it been since I kissed you? I don't wanna wait. How long has it been since you held me?
Hello, this is Barbara from Vienna and welcome to this video. I made this cute little booklet off camera for some reason, and then I decided, well, since I'm gonna embellish it as well, I might as well turn the camera on. And I'm so frustrated because I made this booklet following a tutorial and I thought it was by Roxy Creations, and then I checked her channel over and over and I cannot find this video. And then I checked Tracy Fox and I couldn't find it, so I cannot find it and I can't link it below, and it really frustrates me because I'm sure some of you will want to make this booklet, and I will keep looking. Maybe I can still find it, then obviously I'll link it below. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I thought maybe you'd enjoy. Anyway, watch me embellish it. I really love how it turned out. So I'm making this little collage on the front. And I'm just using some scraps and some images I've cut out of a vintage floral book. I'm also adding a tiny bit of lace there. And I must say it took quite a while to make. And I also covered all the sides with some vintage book paper, as you probably saw. Now I wanted to add some words to the collage, and I found this piece that I had cut out from a book which says "She didn't tell anyone." So I thought that was really cute, and I wanted to add that to the front of my booklet. So I'm just gonna cut that down a little bit, and I think I'm trying to see how I can place it. Yeah, I actually divided because it was too long. Then of course I'm inking it up, and I'm just going to glue that down. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. Maybe even if I can't find the link, maybe it can inspire you to do a little flip out thingy for your journal. So that's what the final collage looks like. Really love how that turned out. And we're going to continue decorating the inside and adding some tags as well. So on the inside I also wanted to add some more of these vintage images, and I also wanted to add this definition. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, but I love the definition. You can read there. So I definitely wanted to add that. And I think I make a pocket out of it. I'm sorry I don't remember everything I did here because it's been a while since I've actually filmed this, and I kind of had it just waiting with my other videos, and it kind of never fit to anything else I was filming, so it kind of was just there. And so I thought, okay, I'll just keep it. And then I had a calligraphy piece at the end. You'll see I'm going to be doing one of my calligraphy assignments, so I'll take you along on that. So I just put these two parts together, and it's kind of like a really random video, but I do hope you enjoy it anyway. And if you do, if you haven't subscribed, I would love for you to subscribe to not miss any of my upcoming videos. And if you would give it a like if you enjoy it, that would really be appreciated as well. Of course, I love all your comments too. I always try to answer if I can, or at least give it a like. I always read your comments, as you know. So this is the second like mini collage. All I did there was to put a piece of music paper scrap in the back. And now I am continuing to see what else I want to put there. I'm gonna add some more of these images, but I didn't want to add too many because I thought that would look kind of weird. So I'm trying to also add a few other things, like here. I just love this punch, and I am going to make a tab out of it that I'm going to add to this little tiny pocket, just to kind of give it like a handle. It doesn't need one, but tabs are just so cute. I always love including them. This imagine word is from Emma's word definition sheet, which I will link below. She kindly let me have a link for free for you guys to use for your journals, and I use them all the time, her word definitions. They're so cute. But this was just like an extra bonus word that she had on the bottom that I love using in my journals. So I just put that on the tab. Now I'm gluing the tab onto that tiny little pocket. And this is just a piece of white wax candle. And what I'm doing here is, since it was sticky a little bit from the tape and I didn't want the pages to stick together, I just rubbed a little bit of that candle on. And I do that quite often, even in my journals. It works really well. Now I'm in my ephemera book, and if you want to see how I made that, if you haven't seen it, I will link that down below as well. I have a video on that. Have been inspired by Gail Agostinelli for this. Now I'm just picking out some pieces. These are bits that I have just stamped myself and then cut out with punches, and they always come in handy for any kind of project I want to do. So I wanted to use this butterfly, and I also wanted to give it a little more interesting background, so I'm adding my music paper scraps. So please don't throw away your scraps. There's so many things you can do with them. And I also wanted to add just a little piece of that self-adhesive lace that I have. You can find those on Amazon, on Etsy, on AliExpress, at Action if you're in Europe and you have that store. So they have those everywhere actually, and they have white ones, and they have the like the what do you call them? The off-white ones. And I just love using them. They're so quick and easy to use, and just add a little bit of something extra, something special to your collage. And then I found this cute like faux stamp that I had received in a Happy Mail, and I thought that would be perfect for the other side of this tiny pocket. It was amazing when I made this flip out thing, or basically when I started decorating it as well. I realized how many sides this pocket thing has. Like, it seemed like I always found a new side that was still empty. It was quite amazing. It really took me quite a long time. So here I'm also just looking for a few scraps to put behind this stamp, just to give more interest and just to make like a little collage. I think they're always more interesting than just gluing one piece down. And even if you have the tiniest scraps, just put them there. It will look nice. And as you probably know, I always tend to go more like with the neutral colors, especially for backgrounds, because we don't want the background to distract. We want it just to enhance the piece that's on top of it. So look how cute that is. I love it. Okay, now we have a few sides done, but there's still a lot more to go. So I am again looking at my floral images, auditioning a few to see which one I would like. I think this is the one I go with, but it was just a bit too wide, so I just cut it down a little bit. And that looked good. And of course I'm going to ink it up. Maybe you ask yourself, why do I ink everything? I ask myself that. So I usually do it because several reasons. So if a piece is too white for my otherwise vintage project or book page, I will give it a distressed edge. If I wanted to stand out more in a collage or in whatever way on a page, I will ink it up. And if I want to make it look more vintage, I will ink it up. And also, I've realized if I'm stalling or procrastinating because I don't know how to move on from continuing with my journal page or so, I will just ink and take a moment to think about my next step. So yeah, the inking is I guess it's also therapeutic in a way. It sounds really weird. Anyway, so I'm making a next little collage here, and these words wildflowers were also from a vintage book that I no longer have, but I did keep the images and some of the words, which I always try to do because they come in handy, as you see. And once again, I am putting some scraps behind the image again using some music paper scraps and random other scraps that I have. Yeah, and just gluing everything down with my glue stick. And I really enjoy how this little page turned out as well. Simple but cute to look at, I think. So next I wanted to tackle that one pocket, and I have these cute images from another vintage book. I usually find my vintage books at the flea market or at Goodwill. I'm lucky to have both of them within walking distance of me, so I tend to go there maybe a couple times a month and usually find beautiful books there, thankfully. And so I just used my die cut machine to cut out some of the smaller images, and they're really cute to use on little collages like this. So I'm going to use this bird, which is just fussy cut, and I really love him there. And of course the combination of birds and butterflies and botanical images, you can't go wrong with those. That will always turn into something very, very beautiful. Again, I'm just giving him a little bit of a background here with some scraps. This was from some packaging from one of Allison's Happy Mails. And I think it's a ledger page. Yeah, just always inking everything up. A lot of times I will just ink up the focal point, but in this case I also wanted the background pieces all to kind of stand out a little bit more against the book pages. So I'm inking those up as well. So again, love how that one turned out. Very, very simple here. So, yep, really like how this is developing. So next, yeah, so this word definition is a little pocket. So I found this bird image that I had cut out. I think that was with a die cut, but basically it was just a square. You could have just cut it out by hand. And I wanted to back it on some heavier cardstock. This is 200 GSM because it was a bit too flimsy just being a book page. And I kind of wanted to make a tag out of it, so I thought that would be better. Yeah, and now I'm just cutting off the top corners to form a tag shape. I'm going to ink that up. I'm going to see if that fits. It was a bit of a tight fit, but it was okay. And then I'm inking up this bird image, and actually I'm going to change that again afterwards. So then I thought I needed a background because that beige was just too plain, and I thought I would use this music paper again, and this time I'm just tracing the tag shape because I wanted it to cover the full tag. And now I'm just tearing it instead of cutting it to have a bit of a softer edge, and just checking how that would fit. And then I thought, no, it's covering too much of the music page. So after I inked that music bit up, I just glued it down, and I'm actually going to be cutting out that little bird, like fussy cutting it. Because then you could see more of the music paper underneath. So I'm inking that as well, and then I'm just gonna glue him down, and we are making a hole on the top to be a proper tag. And we're also going to include a little eyelet. I love my crocodiles so much. I think with an eyelet it just looks a lot more fancy immediately. And now I am going to add a little string there. Just tie a tiny bow around it. Snip off the ends that are too long, and there's our tiny little tag, which I think is adorable. I'm going to stick that right in that pocket. So that's another side done. So we've got all those done. And I believe now I am trying to make some tags to go into those two right pockets. So again, I'm looking at these adorable bird images from my vintage books that I have used the die cuts for, and I'm just checking if the width of that would work. So I'm inking it up, and I'm also going to be putting that on some of that beige cardstock. So I just measured how wide it could be to still fit in the pocket, just checking to make sure that it actually goes in and out. Again, snipping off the corners to make a tag, inking that up. And this time I'm going to use some of that same vintage book paper that I used to cover these sides as backgrounds. I'm going to use that for the tag. And I just glued that on, and now I wanted to add these cute little birds in their nest, but I thought I would actually put them on there as a pocket. So I just put my hole in, and I used my hole reinforcers that I have just inked up with vintage photo distress ink. If you want to do that yourself, please make sure you buy non-glossy ones, otherwise they won't ink up well. So, and I have this little tiny tag that I made with a small tag punch that I already had in my stash. And now I'm going to use this washi, which is one of my most favorite washis ever. This is from AliExpress. I will link that below. And I'm going to use that to make my background for this tiny tag. So I'm just tearing it to the right size, kind of, inking it, and then just taking off the back to glue that down. And I wanted to have an image there, and I just decided to use a tiny stamp. These I got at a local shop called Thalia, which is actually a bookshop. And so I can't link those, unfortunately. And I'm using my Memento Espresso Truffle ink, which almost looks black. And I just stamped that little bird on there, which is really cute. I think I show you a close-up later. I hope I do. I'm using the same string to just again tie a tiny little bow onto that tag. Snipping off the ends again. So that little tag is going to go into the pocket that I'm gluing down now. Just gonna put some tacky glue on 3 sides. Stick that on the tag. I'm gonna put that tiny tag in there. So that's how it looks. Yeah, that's what the little bird looks like. It's really cute, I think. So that's gonna go in that first bigger pocket, and I'm actually not adding a string to that tag. You could, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't feeling it. And now we needed yet another tag for this tiny pocket. And using the same cardstock, again, just measuring how wide the pocket needs to be, cutting that out, checking that it fits in there, cutting off the corners, so it's always the same process. And I wanted to add one of my vintage botanical images, and they were all kind of big, so I decided to find one that I could maybe cut down a little bit. And I believe this is the one I choose. So I just take off that one branch that's making it so wide. And then I end up cutting off a little bit of the other branch on the bottom right there. Again, inking it up. And again, we need some sort of a background. So I'm taking a tiny piece that I have left of my book page, gluing that down after I inked it up again, and then finally gluing down the floral image. And there's our tiny little tag for that pocket. Okay, so now it's finished. So now you can see the whole little booklet, which you can just use on its own, or you can obviously glue it into a journal and then just have it in there. I think it's so cute to have like flip things. It's these interactive elements are just so much fun. So if any of you know which tutorial that is, please link it below, because I really want to credit, first of all, the creator, and I also wanted to link a tutorial for you to use if you want to make one of these. So I apologize again. Now, moving on after this, we're going to have an abrupt change of subject. We're going to go into calligraphy, and you're gonna accompany me on an assignment I had to do for my calligraphy course. And the assignment was to make a drink menu, which seemed very challenging. And so we had to use different types, different sizes of nibs. And I believe this is the number 2 flat nib that I'm using. And so I had already printed out the image for the front that I found on Google. And now I'm writing the title of the restaurant, or the pub in that case. I decided to go for an Irish pub, so it's called Flanagan. Actually, it's called Flanagan's, but the S didn't fit anymore, so it's just called Flanagan Pub. On the inside, the headings I'm writing are just drinks menu, and I'm just trying to work in a way that I'm doing all the parts that I first do with a certain nib size and then move down to the next smaller nib size and so on. So I'm kind of working all over the menu. So I believe this is the number, no, maybe the other one was the number 3. Now this, I think it's the number 2. And then I'll be working with the number 1. So 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter, etc. So now I just added Vienna, and I added a fake phone number of the pub. I mean, the pub actually does exist in Vienna, but some of the information is fake that I'm adding. So now I am adding the actual drinks that I will be adding prices to in the one of the later steps. And these are actually items that Flanagan's Pub has on their menu, but of course they have a lot more. But since my writing is that size, I couldn't fit all of them. So here's another, oh sorry, so these are actually still the subheadings, I'm sorry. So we have some beers, we have some spirits, we have some wines, and finally I believe we have some coffee and tea. So you see, I've already made all my guidelines, and this whole thing took me forever. You don't know it watching me right here because I've cut so much out, but I think writing this menu took me at least 2 hours, if not more. So this is the back side of the menu. So here I'm just writing the address of the pub, which is a fake address, so please don't go there to the pub. I mean, the address exists in Vienna, but the pub isn't there. So if you ever come to Vienna and you want to come to Flanagan's Pub, please check the right address. It's actually a nice pub. So yeah, so this is in the first district, which is the center of Vienna. And Now I'm once more changing the nib. And of course, changing the nibs is also a long process because you can't just switch the nibs, because you have to first clean the first nib. So you have to take it to your water faucet, you have to make sure it's clean, you have to dry it and put it back, and then you take a new one. So it all takes time. It's a slow process, and I guess that's what calligraphy is. But sometimes it gets a bit frustrating when everything takes so long. But I would like to say I did get full points on this project, so I am very happy with the result, and I am proud of myself for sticking it out and not giving up on the project. So these are some of the spirits that they have, and the wine and the beer, and now I'm adding the wines as well. When I see myself writing this fast, I'm like, oh my god, I wish I could write that fast. So now we're adding some espresso, cappuccino, Irish coffee, of course, and a pot of tea. And finally, I'm adding the prices. For some reason, I enjoy writing the numbers most of all. In all the fonts that I'm learning, I'm just loving the numbers. I don't know why that is. I love numbers in general a lot. Also, when I look at vintage stamps, I just always love the numbers most. So now I'm just adding a few more like very simple embellishments. And at the top, I wanted to add this weird design or symbol, or however you want to call it, because their website kind of had something like this. So I thought, okay, I will try that. And I hate how it turned out. I absolutely hate it. So I'm going to change that, because I could not see myself doing this whole thing again because of that one thing that I didn't like. So procrastinating, I was inking all the edges. So then I decide I'm going to take this stamp and put it over, well, I'll put it on a scrap piece of coffee stained paper first, but yeah, then I'm gluing this over it because that looks so much better, because I will never be able to draw as well as a stamp can stamp, so why go to the trouble? Here I'm adding a few more embellishments with stamps just to kind of spice it up a little bit to make it not look so plain. And I will link the stamp set down below. It's from AliExpress. Love that stamp set so much. And for the back where the address is, I'm also going to be adding these same borders. Top and bottom, just to kind of frame that address a little bit. There we go. So that's the finished menu. Some photos here so you can see that better, and I'm quite pleased with how it turned out, and I hope you enjoyed watching me make this. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little bonus video on a Sunday, and wishing you all a wonderful Sunday if you still have it in front of you or ahead of you. So I hope to see you in the next one on Tuesday then, okay? Thank you so much for watching. Bye.